Black women, we have this tough exterior and interior because we've had to protect our hearts. And it, I know as a Black woman, it's a big risk to be authentic and be true to who you are. It's a big risk because society doesn't accept it.
The problem in the world today, it lacks empathy. It constantly sees less in so many people, so you can't see more in them. And unfortunately, we are, the majority, right? Like, and so and it includes, both communities, rather it's the Black community, the disabled community, like anything that can kind of, that's not dominant has been shed to light, because even all the laws that are being passed now, like the Crown Act, it's like you just said, it would be a hard day in hell to argue with a Black woman about her hair when a law just passed about her hair, right?
Right. Right.
Like there's it, and it's kind of like a lot of people are blind to the awareness that we're fighting a fight that has not ended in 400 years or more. Like it, it is progressing, but we're still fighting.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a word. We are still fighting. Whew.
So Miss Melissa.
Yes. Yeah. So no, I'm just taking all of this in, and reflecting on it both personally and certainly with folks that I work with, and but really that sense of it does start with loving oneself and accepting oneself. And we are taught that we are unacceptable. And so in getting past that, and I love Anna's idea of writing down the things that you value about yourself. And if you can't, ask someone, a couple of people very close to you. And you don't necessarily want people who are just cheerleaders, and you certainly don't want people who are all negative. You want someone who will actually really take this seriously and say, look, this is what you bring to my life. This is what I see you bring to the lives of others, because we're actually wired from an evolutionary point of view to look at the negative. Our brains are created from and it's basically to keep us alive. So we're always looking for what's the threat, what's the negative aspect. And so when we hear that and we're fed that, that is what we believe about ourselves. More often. I mean, we are just wired to believe that. And I think it takes, for every negative statement you hear about yourself, it takes 8 to 10 positive statements to actually counteract that. That one negative statement, that one negative belief. So there's that. So you really need to put as much as you can. If you don't have people in your life who will do that, look to the things that you're allowing into your life. Social media, music, things that you're watching on TV, movies. All of these things are feeding into your brain on a constant basis, whether or not you are consciously aware of it. And so you really are wanting to be selective about what you're bringing in to reflect love, to reflect light, to reflect truth, not society's version of how, the truth of what a Black person is, because we know all of that is nonsense, and, or at least those of us on this panel know that. But a lot of people, unfortunately, don't yet know that. And they are fighting the fight, and we are fighting the fight. And so, for us to come up and really, as Anna said, be the light. And maybe we are some of those voices, absolutely, that people will look to say, okay, that is not just Blackness, that's truth. I don't care what color you are. You know, you could be black, white, yellow, orange, polka dot. You know, it doesn't matter. It's really, who are we authentically? And once again, we need to be the voices for ourselves, because as this is coming up, this is an opportunity for us to change things, to make things, to bring things to the forefront and not let the script be written again for us by others, you know. And so what kind of script do we want to write for ourselves?
I like that.
Like it, write your own story. I got it on in my gym. I have a mural and it says, "How will your story end?"
Yep.
It's just, that's what I think about every day.
Yeah.
And you got something that looked like you were about to kind of drop some gems on us. I don't know.
Well, I taking all of this in, and first of all, just the beauty of just these faces, right? The inside out beauty of the people who are on this panel. Because at the end of the day, you know, when you have the opportunity to look back at the end of your life, are you going to say that you lived your life for you? Or are you going to say that you lived your life living up to the expectations of others, which is not really living? And so, you know, you have to come back to, again, to who you are and really understand that authentic is really embracing that. And that means going against the status quo. That's what that means, right? Because you've been living in status quo life, but that isn't really authentic living, right? If you can look, you know, what I did is I listed out some of the things that you can identify. You can ask yourself, okay, am I living authentically or am I living a fear-based life? And so you can ask yourself these questions. You know, authentic is, you know, characteristics of authentic or your willingness to be vulnerable, your willingness to be real, your willingness to go deep, right? You're not a surface, you know, you're willing to go beyond the surface. You are living in self-integrity, and meaning that no matter what. So if that means going against the status quo, then that's what that means. That means that you have also, you're coming from a place of self-love. And, you know, if you're living a fear-based life, you know, or trying to create success in fear, you know, from a fear-based place, you're closed instead of vulnerable. You have this kind of this shell of toughness. And a lot of times, because of the way that you know, Black women have been treated in society, there has been that shell of toughness, right? We're underneath, oh my gosh, just so many emotions and just so much love, that the fear, you're right, of being vulnerable. You know, someone who's, you know, who's focused on fear, maybe even unknowingly, is someone who looks good from the outside. They want to make sure that they keep up appearances, right? So they want to make sure that their life looks great on the outside, but really on the inside, they're anything but. You know, someone who skims life on the surface and kind of pushes people, you know, kind of keeps people at a distance. These are things to kind of be thinking about, you know, if any of these are resonating with any of our viewers out there. Someone who is other-centered, meaning that they're so focused on people pleasing and living up to, you know, the expectations of others, that they don't come back to their heart self, which is being heart-centered. You know, authentic living is heart-centered living. Really, it's really tapping into who you are, the truth of who you are. And so, you know, really, fear is a form of self-hate, right? When you're living in fear, that means you haven't fully accepted yourself. And so that's really, these are all signals to you that, wow, instead of, again, looking at this as a learn, don't look at this as, oh my gosh, I've been doing this to myself. You know, I know this is a fantastic opportunity for you to look at your life and say, you know what, I want to step back and I want to start living my life authentically.
I like that part of it. And I left this with us when we talked at the panel discussion. Black women, we have this tough exterior and interior because we've had to protect our hearts. And I know as a Black woman, it's a big risk to be authentic and be true to who you are. It's a big risk because society doesn't accept it. So it's a big risk to be authentic. Like we talked about the Crown Act. You want to wear your hair just like you want to wear it, but it's a risk. You might lose your job. it's a big risk to, I've had conversations just this week where people were like, I'm not going to speak up and speak out about how I feel when I'm in a room where other people, I know I'm sitting in a room with people who don't agree with who I am and what I am. So if I speak up or speak out, I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay my bills because I'm going to lose my job. It's a big risk to walk into a room where you're the only Black woman there and be who you are. Like, how do we as Black women continue to do that? And we have done it. We've done it at a risk, and we've done it out of necessity.
So, you know, from a man's point of view, right? Like women, my mom, strong Black woman, and very yellow. She's high yellow. You know, my grandma was the same, man. But what I found is even like just, you know, in this community, you know, even though it might not be put on the forefront, Black women are powerful and strong. And that adversity sinks in a lot different to our Black women, that it pours out the vulnerability when we can have conversations like this. Meaning I can try to press a Black man to have a conversation like this, and it's a lot harder. But Black women have experience and are willing to start to create change. So when I look at things and I look at people that aren't using their voices, they have so many people that they can focus and follow and look up to. Because like even within you guys, or looking at the women that are in leadership today, I mean, that is gravitating more than just one Black man as a, you know, as a president, you know, or like, and so not saying like we don't have other Black men in leadership. What it's doing is showing the power of women voices. And what happens is now you got all these millions of voices following up right after it. And so like I see more self-awareness being created because of you guys and what you guys are doing, because now I see as, you know, all different complexions and coming together and being able to talk about all these different issues that are in workspaces or in communities, or like you said, like in schools, and putting it on the forefront. Well, the powerhouse is the Black woman. I mean, I don't know how many people, you know, understand that, but I do, you know, and I've read enough to understand and believe that for myself. And so when we're talking about the self-love, and we're talking about the vulnerability and like, how do we get people to even get to this point? I think just the leadership that we have, I mean, we got years that we get to have these women start using their voices, right? You haven't even heard them yet at a magnitude. Look at Miss Obama, right? Like she went from, you know, a lot of people just, they're quiet after they leave, you know what I mean? And she made more noise than probably when she was there, you know, and making tremendous strides into the communities to empower. And so from just sitting as, you know, I am feeling empowered. I actually, when I see Black women on the street and I see them doing well, I have my daughter, right? So I'm a single father to my daughter. And so I have my daughter, I'm like, look. And she's always wondering, like, why am I so happy about it? I'm like, man, you don't even know. That is motivating right there. I'm like, I'm motivated by her, you know? And so like, for me, it is being shown more, right? Like it is being shown that Black women can be successful, that Black women don't have to be on the back end, you know, that Black women can come in and be themselves. And it starts with the hair sometimes. You know what I mean? Like that conversation of saying, keep your hair the way it is, has shifted to people being more empowered about who they are. You know what I mean? And so from me looking out, I'm like, man, I see more Black women with natural hair, you know, and kids too. And so I'm being able to tell kids like, oh my God, I love your hair. And I'm like, you know, and they're smiling and they're embracing it, compared to when I grew up and you would never see that. You know what I mean? You wouldn't see the natural hair. It was like, oh, we got to get it straight real quick. You know what I mean? And so like, I have my sister that I grew up with. So it was like, I seen that. So I just wanted to share from outside looking in of the power that I think most Black men are seeing, right? Like, and it's giving us the ability to even influence these young women, because as much as our women want to figure out how to help our men, we're trying to figure out how to help these young women that are growing up and make sure that they develop and not worry about, like April said earlier, of the sexism and things like that of how Black women are directed or portrayed. You know, like, look at me as a powerhouse and somebody that's moving mountains and not somebody that you trying to move mine, right? Like, no.